Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas and I'm so happy you're here. Well, I'm very excited. I know I feel like I say that every week, but I am excited, you guys. I am excited. I have a very special guest today, all the way from New Zealand, my first international guest. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Anyway, I will introduce him in a moment, but I just want to say already today has been a tiny bit challenging, I must say. And I had a wardrobe malfunction. We've had technical difficulties. We're getting a late start, but you know what, Satan? We got your number, baby, and we're not going to let you take us down. So we know what you're up to. We are going to do this episode, and it's going to be fantastic. So anyway, so I would like to introduce my guest, who is Damien Walker, like I said, from New Zealand. How exciting is that? He is and I have notes because I don't want to mess it up, guys. He is the founder and lead artist at the studio of St. Philomena in New Zealand. His mission is bringing truth, beauty, and goodness to the world through art. And his message honestly couldn't be more vital in our current times and situations. Damien believes that art and beauty are essential to the church's mission of evangelization and how we need more than the secular world to inspire and draw us back to faith. So, first of all, I just want to say, when I received a letter from Damien and his people, I just immediately gravitated to him because I really think that this is a really important subject to talk about, art and just the beauty in the world. So what is more beautiful than God's creation? So with no further ado, here is my guest, Damien Walker. Hello, Damien.
Hello from down south. Well, down under, really. Hello, Louis.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have you, and I'm so excited we got all of our technical difficulties fixed.
Yeah, the mission, the joy of long distance. The signal gets a little bit interrupted, especially when you're doing these things. But no, it's a great mission.
That is so true. Well, like I said, I really do believe that art and beauty and even music, things like that, all those things are gifts from God, in my opinion. And
Yeah,
I feel like when people have the gifts to be able to create art or music or to bring it to other people, I think that is a vital part of our faith.
yeah.
I really
No,
do.
it definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not an artistic person. My brother and sister and my youngest son are all professional artists. And so when I was growing up with my brother and sister who are just like amazing artists, I was like, what happened to me? I
That's all right.
didn't get
Your
that.
podcast is art. Your podcast isn't art. So there we go. It's a different kind of art, you know?
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, I guess I have other gifts, but anyway, I do really admire art and architecture and things of beauty. And especially in our Catholic faith, I think we have some of the most beautiful art and architecture in the world. And
Yeah.
so I am just so interested to talk to you because you are the expert and I am not. So just tell my listeners just a little bit about yourself, and then I have some questions for you that I think will draw
Very
out
good.
what you're here to talk about.
So essentially, I'll give you a quick rundown on our foundation, a little bit about me. So, as you know, Damien Walker. I am the founder of the Studio St. Philomena. So back in 2011, the region in New Zealand we came from is called Christchurch. You may be familiar with it, but we had a huge earthquake that literally destroyed our whole city. So
Oh,
we had, I think, the biggest seismological earthquake. So not only did the ground go up and down, but I went side by side in all ways. So it was literally four ways shaking. So one of the most violent earthquakes recorded, I think, in recent history. So it just totaled the city. Um, but so I was just sort of finishing school about age 17, kind of figuring out I was going to do a plumbing or building degree. And I thought, right, okay, Lord, what do you want to do? And I remember mum and dad sitting me down going, what are you going to do? And I thought, well, my ministry was literally shaken into start. So for every church in Canterbury, the Canterbury region, there was a statue, and they were old statues. And I thought, well, why not? You know, who's going to restore them? Who's going to fix them? So I'd done little repairs before, little noses and hands, and yeah, I started from there. So yeah, fast forward, we were pretty much the field hospital for sacred art. So I was rebuilding sculptures. Started on a kitchen table, my parents' kitchen table, and they came in one by one by one, and we had them all laid down on the kitchen floor because every time we had an earthquake, they rattle through, they'd all move. So I remember there's a few times we were Dad and I we were restoring one of the first statues and would have to hold on to it as an earthquake would shudder through, as you know, the place would, it was like a train would hit and there's a big
Oh,
vibration. Um, Great experience, good for your, if you want to know the power of God, you know, come to New Zealand. um, but yeah, so that was essentially the foundation of the studio. And then from there, we gradually moved in. So um, yeah, we started building the statues and then it sort of progressed on from there. So then fast forward essentially a little bit, the timeline is then fast forward to about 2019. I had the amazing opportunity to visit Australia, and while I was in Australia, I visited a statuary, and his name was Joseph, and he had the last statuary collection in the Southern Hemisphere. So he had these molds, and I met him for a conference, the Australian Bishops Conference. They put on an architectural and liturgical uh, symposium, which I visited. So I had the opportunity to meet Joseph while I was there. And anyway, a few months later, I came back to New Zealand, and then a few months later, he gave me a phone call. He said, "Hey, Damien, you know how you want those you visited the statues, and I've got the molds here. Are you interested in them?" And I thought, oh, let me think about it. Let me think about it. And then he gives me a call a month later, said, "Look, I'm wanting to move. If you don't want them, I'm going to throw them out." And I thought, okay, thank you, Jesus, being more direct than you can be. So, yeah, 2019, then yeah, and then it was flowed into 2020. So we moved it. So there was seven shipping containers of Italian original Italian molds that are
oh,
now in the studio's collection. So we've got, yeah, I think 700 sculptures from Saint Michael the Archangel through to Raphael, through to Saint all your saints, but then also um, a few like Winston Churchill, and also then we've got the whole mannequin selection, so all the glove molds and the bust that they used to have the dressmakers on. So we've got a complete a range of different sculptures.
oh my goodness.
So that's part of it, yeah.
So
So it's quite a vast array.
how big are they? The
Oh, so
molds.
yeah, so you've got from 2.5. Now this is where I get confused with meters and yards. Um, 6.5 feet tall sculptures downwards.
Oh,
So
so like
yeah.
life size.
Oh, life size, yeah, huge, larger than life size. Some of them, yeah,
Oh my gosh, you
yeah.
must have a ginormous place to keep them.
Yeah, they currently, yeah. So they're all stacked into the containers at the moment. So we've got, yeah, a few. I've got a few of them.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
So
And so you were raised Catholic?
yes, raised Catholic, a big Catholic family, amazing Catholic parents, and then yeah, essentially started the mission. Literally started from the earthquake, and then yeah, it's been an incredible opportunity to learn and revive the skill. I mean, in New Zealand doing this specific job. I think I'm the only one that I'm aware of, but there might be others. But yeah, it's a very small field in this part of the world.
So is that what you do full time?
Yes, I'm a full-time sacred artist. Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a mission, but I think it's a foundational. The foundation core of our belief is through beauty, and having the opportunity to revive it is so important.
Right.
Um, and I'm reviving kind of the theology because a lot of the images that you see in your churches, Mary in white and blue, they're a little bit. sentimental, but we have lost, I would say, even post Renaissance, post Reformation, the art back pretty much the Renaissance, it was designed for theology, so as a theological tool, but recently has gone sentimental, if that makes sense. So we've lost the essence of our Catholic culture. So our mission at the studio, my mission, is to revive truth, beauty, and goodness by using the basic cause of our Catholic faith, but reviving the original mission which the church has used art is through as a theological teaching visual means that can point us back to Christ, back to the foundations of our church and back to scripture, and then pointing out from there back into our time. So it's kind of looking outwards, but then going back into, from the early church backwards into ourselves, into knowing Christ and his mother, into contemplation.
Wow. It's interesting to me that I think this happens to a lot of people where you think you have one path or you're trying to make a discernment about what your vocation is going to be or what your path is going to be. And then God comes in and like
It literally shakes
shifts it
you
or
into it.
literally shook you. Yeah. But I just always find that interesting because I think some people are born and raised and they kind of have a gift for something and early on
Yeah.
they know, like my husband Simon, he's always been a creative, since he was a little child and kind of a
Yeah.
filmmaker since he was a little child. And some people have that and other people find out later what they're supposed to do. So I find that part of your story really interesting, that
Yeah.
it was kind of like decided for you and then you embraced it.
Yeah. Essentially, I suppose it was from the rubble, um, was the foundation. Yes, essentially putting restoring art was essentially was giving back to these communities because people don't realize that some of these smaller communities or even parishes, the heart of a parish, the devotion of the parish and the parish's identity is actually quite tied into an image or a devotion. And I mean, some of these statues, I mean, in New Zealand, it's incredible because we are a country of immigrants. It's funny compared to America. There's a lot of different thought perspectives, but in New Zealand, we are still a very young country. Um, so our images came across with the missionaries, often in hay boxes, um, and they were part of the foundation of the evangelization. Often came out with the nuns or the priest with the statues, investments, and that was it. So it was amazing while I was doing these restorations, is looking at all the colors of plasters because so a lot of the sculptures are made out of plaster of Paris. So each region I could almost start to identify where they're coming from because some of your plasters are a pinker color, some of them are whiter, but then realizing the amazing sisters, and then once you start to learn the story of the art, you encounter the missionary community. And yeah, New Zealand's quite unique because the Maori mission. So the New Zealand natives are Maoris. So the mission to New Zealand was to help evangelize the local culture, the local iwi. So yeah, it was amazing, and also to come and help the Irish. So we've got some incredible, incredible priests and bishops that came out at the foundation of our country, and yeah, did some beautiful things. But the foundational core of our country was evangelization through beauty, and then seeing where the Catholic faith and beauty immersed and connected was a foundational part of our, the mission for New Zealand.
Beautiful. So I think that I really, I have a question for you, and I know the answer from my point of view, but I want to hear what you have to say. Why does beauty matter in general, but in the church? Why is that important? I want to hear your answer, and then I'm going to say what I think.
Yeah. I'm going to answer it with a foundational basis of, I think you could probably answer this as well, but it's love. Beauty is love. So when you encounter, and I think It's when you fall in love, you're drawn to something. So truth, beauty, and goodness, the foundation of them is leading you to the higher love. You're pulled upwards. So with beauty matters for the fact being that when you encounter the beautiful, you go towards it. So you've got two options in life. You can either, when you're encounter, say, your husband for the first time, or when he encountered you as a wife, there's that eros moment. It's the encounter with the face of God or the face of love. So the two of you meet. You've got an option. You've either got the opportunity to engage and go towards, or the option to run away. It's scary, and that's why this is a battlefield going on, because with beauty, it's either leads you in or it repels you. So when you fall in love, you've either got that fear moment of, do I encounter this person and do I meet them and engage with them? And do I contemplate and find out who they are? Or do I run away from them? If you take the risk of engaging in love, you meet them, you court them, you get to know who they are, where they're from, you meet their family, and you build a beautiful relationship. You build a family, you build the foundation, you build a life. And then you get to know each other and you grow in holiness together. Then let's parallel that to beauty in the church. When we encounter the beautiful, it doesn't matter how many homilies a priest can do, it doesn't matter how much we preach. Christ in the incarnation took on matter. When he said, verbum cardum factum est, and the word was made flesh, he physically took on the nature. For us in the church, we are people that acknowledge that we can take things of the earth and give glory back to God as God came down from heaven. So it's a conversation between heaven and earth, but giving our best and most beautiful back to God. So when we encounter that beauty, it is the eros moment where we are seeing the face of God. So it is, what is this? So it's that, what is this? So you can enter a space. This can go through for all the art. So you can be into the most beautiful single, cantor singing a piece of music in a barren church, and it can move you to your essence, to your core. It gives you that moment of, what is this? That awesome moment. You're awestruck. But with art, or the arts, but I'm going to say sacred art specifically for what I use, it's that moment where you see the lover, see God, and God is calling us to encounter him in a deep way. Then when we engage with the, what is this? What is this about? What is this mission? What is this thing that I've encountered? What is this? And then where is it coming from? Like, where is this feeling? Where is this emotion? Where is this, what's this about? So you engage with it, you pray. And then that encounter, that what literally taps into the thirst which Christ did, like the woman at the well. The search for truth, the search for goodness in that will at least create a question for someone. And then where is this from? Is the full coming together, like the marriage. It's fusing together the two to, realize that you are in the face of the lover, in face of God, that leads us to the contemplation, to the beauty of his church. And I think that's one of the foundations of what our faith is about. It is leading to, the beauty, the love of Christ in his fullness through the liturgy, through the sacred arts, in contemplation and knowing that we're loved. And then the thing is, when you discover that you're loved in a higher love, then we can then use that hope that brings healing, truth, and grace through the revelation of Christ.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I agree 100% with what you're saying about the magnetic, phenomenon of, beauty, when you're drawn to beauty, whatever that is, like we're saying, like beautiful music or beautiful art, a
Mm.
beautiful person, nature in general,
Yeah.
because it's just so beautiful and awe-inspiring. And I think, beauty is an interesting thing because I think, like they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And some
Hmm.
people find where something is universally beautiful, where people can all
Hmm.
agree, okay, that's a beautiful sunset, that's a beautiful,
Yeah.
things like that. It's you'd have to be a pretty hardened person to not think that certain things, especially in nature, are beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it comes to be very, what's it called? Where some people think it's beautiful and some people don't. And
Yeah.
I do think that I am always fascinated with what someone finds beautiful. And
Mm.
my brother, like I said, being an artist, I remember when I was a child and I would say, "Oh, I don't like that painting. That's ugly, or that's not good." And he'd say, "You can never say that about someone's art because it's their art
Yeah.
and it's their feelings, and you might not care for it, but you shouldn't say those things because it's a beautiful peace to them," which
Yeah.
I thought was good. I'd never forgotten that, and I was pretty young when I
Yeah.
when I said that. But I really do believe in. I'm a convert, so I converted to Catholicism, at age 49, and interestingly enough, what drew me in was I went into a church in Canada, a Catholic church. And what
Oh,
drew me
wow.
in was the architecture, the beauty of the architecture. That's the reason that I went in that church. I didn't go in because it was a Catholic church. That meant nothing
Yeah.
to me, honestly. I went in and I thought, oh, this is like beautiful. And I honestly, what it was is that God was in the church. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ was in the church. That's what my favorite deacon has told me is the reason I went in and felt so different, even though I was a Christian, a watered down Christian, was I went in, it was physically beautiful.
Yeah.
It was an emotional experience for me to go in there. I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And consequently, because I went in that church, it made me interested in seeking out the Catholic faith.
Mm.
And to me, that's like you're saying, being drawn to that
Yeah.
love. And now I'm just, anything that has to do with Jesus, I'm very drawn to because I love him
Yeah.
so deeply. So I do think that, I know this might be not a popular thing to say or a nice thing to say, but I truly believe that the Catholic churches are the most beautiful. And I
Yeah.
think, we have so many things in our churches that's one of the things I love about it. You go into a Catholic church, there's certain things you can count on. There's going to be a crucifix. There's going to be the stations of the cross. There's going to be statues. There's lots of visual things.
Yeah.
There's so many senses that you use when you're in the Catholic faith.
Yeah.
I think in contrast to other religions, but I'm not in other religions, so don't come after me and tell me I'm not quoting that right. But I do think that that's one of the things I appreciate about the Catholic faith is that there is such a profound beauty in everything around you. So I think it does draw you in. It draws you to the Lord. It draws you to, it just like makes you want to be a part of that
Yeah.
naturally, I think.
And I think that's the heart and core of evangelization is that good Catholic art should always lead you back to Jesus. So it shouldn't draw you away. Um, all sacred, or you could say, all sacred art should lead you to encounter Christ and lead you to Jesus, not away from it.
Right.
So even Marian art should always have an element of movement towards Christ. Even some of them direct, but if Mary should is always, like I love to say, she's the moon and Christ is the light of the world. So the light from the sun reflects on the moon. So all our devotion leads back to Christ, so she's reflecting the light of Christ as the vehicle. And I think it's so important. And as you said, the architecture, um, when you realize that the church is like the garden, and all the architecture that you're entering into the new garden, and it's the revelation of Christ in the church, but it's also the temple, the holy of holies. It is the experience of walking through generations of history, of sacred art, of ideologies, of well thought through theology that leads us to this point that yes, we are brought into a church, but we're in motion leading towards heaven. That it's almost like the gateway, the transition time through to Christ and eternity is in the warmth of the church, where Christ is at the head, and then where the people are the body. That's why I love the cruciform churches. You get the church with the wings. It's literally Christ is the head, and we're the people, his body. And you know, when we enter the church, we're coming in to know Christ as members, as parts of his body, to go out then from the church and ite meses, go out. We take out the mission, that the word of God, the incarnation goes out to the world. I think it's incredible, as Catholics, that we've got the opportunity to have these gifts that we have, and using the tools that we have in the church to evangelize beautifully. Yeah, I think it's so important.
Yeah, and when I do believe when people go into, not just me, when I went into that church, but I do feel like there's so many beautiful Catholic churches, and I just think that, that's clearly always been a thing that people were trying to do throughout history, is try to make those churches, beautiful, and just to highlight, like you're saying, Jesus and everything. But I think even people that aren't Catholic, my grandchildren are not Catholic or religious for that matter. And when they were little children, I brought them into our church, and they were just like awestruck,
That's incredible.
They kind of didn't know why, but I mean, I feel that way still when I go. And I just went into a church last week. I said this on my last podcast, a church I've never been to here locally. And I walked in and I just cried because it was so beautiful. I could just, what it did was it reminded me of when I walked into that Canadian church. And even though I didn't know why I felt that way, now I know why I feel that way.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I could just feel Christ in there. It was like I could cut it with a knife. I could just feel him in there. It was so beautiful. I just literally walked in and went, my mouth dropped. I just started crying. They had a statue of Jesus. I went over and knelt in front of it. It was a life-size Jesus. And I was just like, oh my God, I just love it in here. It was just like a magnet, life-changing, it just renewed my love of the beauty of our faith. And, we're getting ready to go on a pilgrimage. And that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to and I think I'm just going to cry the whole time, is I just know that it's going to be so overwhelmingly beautiful, and seeing these works of art and these things that just, are illuminating my love of Christ. So I just can't wait for that. And if I could work like you do on religious art all day, I'd be so happy. But I'm not religious. So before we move on, we're going to have to take a quick break. So hold that thought. And
Hold that thought.
Okay, so we'll be right back. Have you ever wanted to witness the miraculous and walk where saints have walked? This is your chance. Join me, Lori Balderas, host of Fresh Catholic Podcast, and Father Matthew Miguel, as we walk with you through Italy's most sacred sites. From the Eucharistic miracles of Lanciano and Orvieto to the peace of Assisi, your heart will be transformed by these extraordinary moments of grace. You'll walk the hallowed streets of Rome, step into the history of the Vatican, and witness the places where faith has flourished for centuries. Each stop deepens your journey. Each miracle renews your soul. We invite you to join us on an unforgettable, life-changing experience.
Join us and let your faith come alive in Italy.
And we're back. Okay, Damien, next question. Why is liturgical integrity important?
I think it would. I'm going to link it back to what we were just talking about before. I think liturgical integrity is important, as an important part of the church. And also, I think it's the fundamental mission of our faith is the liturgy. So the art in itself, the liturgical art, should draw us back into the liturgy. So if it's a trifecta, really. So you've got when we give the best back to God, if we focus it more, going back to that core mission of if we truly want to give the best back to God, like they did in the temple, the gold, the incense, the smells, the bells, the whole lot, it is a form of conversation. The liturgy is a conversation between God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, sending down to humanity to touch the lives of us and bring grace and healing that comes with it and hope. So in the liturgy, what the purpose of the liturgy, Sursum Corda, lift up your hearts. I think the goal is to, with beautiful liturgical practices and giving beauty back to the liturgy through the arts, through the sacred music, it's an incredibly powerful means of evangelization. Um, the sacred art. So we'll start with art. Art leads you into contemplation, so it leads you in. The music leads your minds upwards. The art leads you into contemplation, and the Eucharist draws you into the encounter. So it's a triangle. It's constantly moving. And I think it's a fundamental part of our faith, because if you think of this, we've got the Trinitarian symbol as well, and it's also the love symbol. It's understanding that by giving our best to God, He can do so much with it. And I think, the power of beauty through the liturgy and the revival of beauty in the liturgy is a fundamental part of our faith. And I think the more beautiful and the more beauty that we can give back to God, the best of our materials, it will draw. It allows space for parishes and communities to be, just to be, in the essence of going into contemplation and actually having an encounter, to be able to sit in a space that is sacred and let the liturgy wash over us. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful tool, and it's living, because when we're immersed into sacred liturgy, we are moving. Time freezes, and we're just in the face of we're facing God. It's the encounter where God and heaven comes down to see us, and we meet and we join, and we can just be. And for me, that's if you look at that from the integrity part of it, it's crucial. And I think that's what's been a big revival to a lot of people are coming to Catholicism, for the fact being that it is the encounter where there's so much noise, so much loudness in the world, there's so much movement, but it's incredible if you go into a liturgy and you either hear the sound of an organ to start off with, or there can be a simple, responsorial psalm or something. That sound, that moment, that tone takes you from the world, and you know that you are somewhere beyond yourself. It's not the sound of the world. These are the sounds that elevate you. And I think, there's something beautiful with our faith, because we're living, our faith is living. But, people, you see them, they take the statues in procession, honoring the saint or Christ. But then you'll get a Corpus Christi procession, the movement. It's a living faith. The church isn't designed to be stale. It's moving. It's alive. It's got a heartbeat. It's got a pulse. I think it's so crucial to revive and give hope to parish communities. And I think using the tools that the studio has got, I mean, for us, um, giving the church back its integrity is important as well. A lot of the churches have been neutralized, but I think we've got the opportunity, because understanding where that thought process came from with the neutralization, a lot of it was to do with going back to the early churches and less distractions. But I think, and I can see where that thought process came from, but I think now's the beautiful opportunity to give back and show the love that Christ has for our communities, to give back and reinstate some of those gifts that we can restore back to communities. And I think that's important. Um, Even we've got different cultural backgrounds and different communities, so it's an incredible opportunity to revive some of these traditions, or even regional traditions, and it gives the dignity back to the communities, because they have something they can identify themselves in and see themselves as part of.
Right. Well, I know that Simon and I both feel like our Catholic faith and like going to our Catholic mass, one of the reasons we love it is we believe it's just very traditional, very
Yep.
reverent. It's different. I was a Christian in, a Protestant, and looking back, I now think it was just so watered down. It was a lot of noise. It was a lot of socializing. It was kind of there for the wrong reasons. Like, not that I was doing this, but a lot of people were like, well, what is she wearing? Who's with who? What,
Yeah.
like they'd be chattering away, or there's a lot of, kind of jarring music, or it's am I at a rock concert or am I at church?
Yeah.
Some people that works great for, and not downplaying that. I'm all for whatever your faith journey is. You should, whatever gets you to Christ is none of my concern or business. I just want everybody to go to Christ, and of course I'd love
Yeah.
everybody to be Catholic because I love it so much. But I just like what you're saying is that I believe in our faith, everything has a reason. Everything has, like you're saying, everything draws you back to Christ. Learning about our faith, knowing why we do what we do, why, what, when, where, why are we doing all these things? There's a
Yeah.
reason for everything, which in my opinion makes it way more beautiful, way
Yeah.
more meaningful. It it helps me to have a better relationship with Christ. It
Yeah.
helps me to seek him out. And I love being, in the church. Being in nature is great, but I love being in the church, and I know he's in there. He's out in nature as well. I know everybody. Don't come at me, but it's more that I know he's in the church. I love the traditions. I love that he started the church. That means a tremendous amount to me. It's his church. It's his way. He's the way, the truth, and the life. It's not
Mhm.
Fred's church. It's Jesus's church. I just love all that. I love to be submerged in it all. And,
Mhm.
that's why I do feel like some people, even when they wander into a church, in a Catholic church, they can feel it. They can feel that beauty. They can feel the history of it all. Like you were talking about, it's the church is a living thing.
Mm.
It's a living, breathing thing. It's not something that, like you lock the doors and it stops. Being Catholic to me is a lifestyle. It's an all day, every day. I don't turn it off and on. Some people wish I would turn it off. I'm not going to. No, but I agree with what you're saying, and I do think the liturgy is very important. All these things are important to our faith and drawing people closer to Christ, of course.
And I think especially with young people these days, it's like a magnet, It just I think because it's so fast, the world is so fast, there's so much overloaded information and overstimulation that you don't have the time to be. And that's essential, People don't know how to be. And, Jesus went into the desert for 40 days. Um, People forget that. Christ went into contemplation. So that's why I think there's great hope, especially in America. It's less so down where I am, but a lot of parishes in the states I know have got adoration chapels, and I think it's giving people the opportunity, America and Canada, but they've got the opportunity to be and pray. And I think, yeah, it's interesting. Um, I was involved with a youth group, one of our local parish youth groups a few years ago, and it's interesting. Now's the time where young people are searching for the truth, and that there's not that time to. They want the answers, and they want to know the essence of what's happening. So yeah, it's a really powerful tool, I think, using beauty and knowing your faith that you can be able to have the opportunity to respond to them, because you've got a very short window. If you can't respond to them in the correct way, it's very difficult because they're gone. But I think using
Wait, you mean the children, like the youth?
young people. So I would, yeah, sorry, yeah, to clarify. So yeah, but in a youth group, this was from my experience of talking to them um several years ago. But I think, yeah, they're searching for the truth, and they know it when they see it. You know, yeah, we had quite a few families come into the faith during our youth group years, and yeah, it was incredible just seeing how on fire these kids became. But evangelizing through using the things in the church, so you can give a whole talk pointing at the crucifix or the visual aids, because my words are only words, but you add a rich tapestry of visual elements to it and point out, this is what I mean, and this links to this, and this links to this, and this links out to this. Um, they get it so fast, you know.
Well, and again, it goes back to a lot of people that were raised in the Catholic faith. Many of them don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They just do, they just
Yeah.
kind of go through the motions. Excuse me. I believe when people realize why they're doing what they're doing at any age, all of a sudden a light bulb goes up and goes, oh, okay. And that makes a big difference. And
Yeah.
I think you're right that the youth or young adults, they all want answers. They all kind of want their answer. The world is telling them all sorts of crazy things, lies and misconceptions. And, it's very confusing, not just to the
Yeah.
youth, but to people in general. And I tend to go back to whatever Jesus says, whatever his take on something. Sometimes it's hard to hear what he has to say. Contrary to what a lot of people who aren't close with Jesus think, oh, he was just a nice guy. He always said yes. He loves everybody no matter what. Well, he's a very firm person.
Yeah.
He's our very firm but loving God. And he is, he sets his boundaries. Like you were saying, he would go, he went off to the desert, had that quiet time, but he would do that often in his ministry. He would take off and go pray. He needed some alone time with his Father. In this day and age, everybody, not just youth, they're also consumed, as we all know, with everything. But having that quiet time of contemplation, meditation, prayer, where you're blocking everything out. Anybody that listens to my podcast, honestly, every episode I talk about going to the Adoration Chapel because I love it so much, because it is so quiet and peaceful. And that's where I can really hear what God is saying to me. That's where I can go in and be quiet and listen to him And it brings me such peace and clarity. When I
Yeah.
need an answer, I go in there and that's where I'm getting my answers. And
Yeah.
not that he's not answering me in my everyday all day, but like you're saying, many of the things you're saying are very clear to me and very true. And
Yeah.
I do think, people do want the truth. They do want to hear what the truth is. How do we find out the answers? What are the answers? How, another thing that I think is really important, and many people look down on this, is the lives of the saints are so
Oh,
important
powerful.
because
Yeah.
we don't worship the saints, but I'll tell you what, if you read about them and learn about them, it's their deep love and devotion to the Lord,
Yeah.
unwavering devotion. Simon got me a saint book for Christmas. It's 365 days of saints, a different
Oh,
saint's
that's
day.
great.
And it's amazing. And he asked me the other day, he said, so far, do you know all the saints so far? I said, absolutely not. I mean, I've heard of some of them, but I'm reading them. And what's striking me is their just deep devotion and just unwavering. It's just, their stories, if you want some really good stories as a youth, read the lives of the saints. And
Yeah.
again, it's drawing people closer to Christ. It's not to highlight those saints and to make them, a god. It's that they're good role models of how we should be living our lives because we all want to be saints. I know I want to be a saint. That's what I want to be when I
Yeah.
grow up. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I think, that's really interesting. And I do think that not just youth, but a lot of youth are just starving and starving and dehydrated from our Lord. We all need
Mm.
to soak him in and consume him, um, you know,
Mm.
figuratively and literally consume him
Yeah. No.
so that we can get closer to him and be more holy and like him.
No, it makes sense. It makes 100% sense. And I think, you think the woman at the well, when she encountered Christ, that thirst that he untapped in her. And I think we all are like her. We've got that thirst for God. And if we don't know we're thirsting, how do you know you're thirsty? But then you have that first sip, and then it's the wave that hits you of rehydration. It's that wow, what is this? And you are forever thirsty, as opposed to not thirsty at all. And I think that's what we have got. That's why Catholic faith is so beautiful, because you can taste and see the goodness of the Lord. But not just that, we can then use these incredible tools to evangelize. I think, and the saints are very powerful.
Many people are like I say, starving and thirsty, but they're seeking out the wrong thing.
Yeah,
Have you ever been thirsty and you'll drink something else and you'll think, well, that didn't satisfy me at all. I would really just like some water. That's
yeah,
what's going to satisfy me. Or you eat something that's not nutritional, isn't nutritious, and it just leaves you feeling awful. And when you have something
yeah,
that's really healthy and good for you, you tend to feel better. So
yeah, yeah,
I think we're all seeking something, but people get off track. They seek out the wrong thing, and then, God willing, they'll circle back around. God's a magnet, Jesus is a magnet, and they will, be fulfilled with him. I mean, he's really
yeah,
what everybody's looking for. They just don't know it yet if they haven't
yeah,
already encountered him.
yeah.
Many
And I
people
think
reject
it's
him, because they don't think that he's it. But most people, if you ask them, what are some of the things you want in life? They'll say things that just aren't important. But ultimately,
mm,
at the older you get, pretty much all you want is peace. I know that's what I'm
yeah,
seeking. I
yeah,
used to want things. I'm seeking peace at this age. So,
mm,
and I think we want that for everybody, to feel peace and love and, like you're saying, everybody wants the truth, but a lot of people can't handle the truth.
And I think that if you think about it, like I was painting the other day, and it kind of dawned on me, like, as we go through life, um, our faith journey is a bit like, when people do the work on themselves. So you can go through, if you tie faith and say therapy, for instance, like when you do the work, it's a bit like the encounter with Christ. It's like looking at a mirror. Say, for instance, our life is like a mirror, and it's not clean. You can't fully see yourself in it. But as you deepen your faith, you do the work, you encounter yourself. It's like you get the opportunity to clear that mirror and see God's plan for you. And it's like the dirt and grime, you see it clearly, but you have the beautiful opportunity to clean it. Even though there's pits and there's stains and there's cracks in the mirror, still it's a revelation of who you are through the eyes of God. So it's almost like the clarity, the spiritual clarity, but also the hope that we have, that we can see ourselves through this grime, through the and for me it's the same as painting. I start off with a canvas or a sculpture. I never know what it's going to look like because I start and it's a very muddy stage, and the clarity comes over time. It's not just, several moments. It's a developing to get to the clarity. And I think if you look at it through the eyes of faith, it's an opportunity for us to grow, to see clearly. But I mean, you'll never get full clarity till you're dead. That's the truth. But the revelation of ourselves through the eyes of love, to grow even taller, higher, and to know ourselves through the eyes of God. I think it's beautiful. There's a beauty in it. It's that knowing who we are and where we're going. And that's what art does. It reveals in us who we are, what we're coming from. And that's why good art should provoke these questions of emotion. It should provoke a sense of dignity, of giving back. It shouldn't shock. Catholic art should not shock you. It should be shocking, but not shock, in the sense being of repulsion. It should draw you in, not repulse. And if it's repulsing, okay. But that's not where, I mean, even in the Vatican, during the Reformation, the Vatican itself is the biggest fight against Reformation. All the saints, as you walk through the Vatican, you walk up and walk up and walk up and walk up. And then around the throne of St. Peter is the four biggest saints of the Reformation. And they're all pointing towards the throne of St. Peter. And not many people realize this, but they are literally proclaiming, we are Catholic and we have fought the faith, and this is the truth of our faith. Tuus Petrus, there is Peter. Look, there is the foundation of our faith. There is the Holy Spirit. You cannot argue with them. And it's the four great evangelists of the Reformation that fought all the heresies, but they're all pointing towards the tabernacle, towards the chair of Peter, towards the strength of our faith. The seat, the foundation of our faith in the Vatican is being literally directed to us, saying, here is your faith. And not many people realize this, but when you walk through the whole Vatican, St. Peter's is pointing, directioning towards the Chair of St. Peter, towards the tabernacle, towards the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is enlightening us through the eyes of faith, through Peter, to the church, through Christ and his church. And it's incredible. Like, it's powerful. But it's, let a mortal flesh keep silence. When you understand that moment, the gravitas of that moment, it's quite incredible.
Well, when I go to the Vatican in September on my pilgrimage,
Yeah,
I'll
look
have
at
to
them. They're
check it
just
out.
sitting there on either side. Yeah.
All right. With that, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Let me tell you about all things Fresh Catholic, so buckle up. We have a podcast with weekly topic episodes and Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily Mass readings, on all platforms and YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, rate, and review. That would really help. Our website, freshcatholic.com, has an online store with merchandise and coffee, a blog, comics, info about our pilgrimage to Italy in September of this Jubilee year, and Fresh Catholic courses with educator Charles Merritt, including the Hail Mary, the Our Father, Sin, Sacraments and Grace, Advent, Angels, and Virtues. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh Catholic with short videos every day. Email me at lori@freshcatholic.com. I'd love to hear from you. And please consider becoming a Patreon or sponsor to help support our mission of drawing people to the faith or back to the faith. Phew! Spread the word and join the fun. Thanks so much. Bye. And we're back. Okay, Damien, I would like to know, we're going to wind down the episode a bit, but I'd like to know, tell us how you're preserving precious religious art. Tell me about that.
Oh, that's a good question. It's a diverse range. I think currently, I think one of the main things that we're sort of preserving is reviving. I think is reviving a new style of art that hasn't been seen in the church yet. And I think what I would, the mission that we're trying to revive is beauty. So currently what we are doing in the studio is doing full church fit out. So we're going into communities and being able to work alongside a parish or a priest, and be able to give them the opportunity to see with a new vision what we can offer. So, like if it's new flooring and new statues, but yeah, reviving the beauty of the churches. And that's, I suppose, part of our mission. And then also, I think, preserving it. I mean, obviously the studio is in itself is like a big museum in itself of preserving the sacred art. But yeah.
Well, it's a
Sorry,
big
gone
job.
blank.
I feel it's okay. I feel it's a big job that you're doing, and I think it's so worthwhile. And it must be just so enriching to you to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's an incredible opportunity. It is an incredible opportunity to be able to get and walk alongside parish communities as well. And I think, yeah, being able to look at a lot of the cultural aspects too, which are super important. Um, yeah, definitely.
So do you have anything that, like, what I would like to know is what has been your favorite thing to work on that was the most fulfilling for you so far?
Okay, right. So, one of my favorite projects so far, probably one of my most profound projects, would have been the Our Lady of New Zealand. That definitely would be one of my biggest projects that we did. So in 2020, our bishops in New Zealand commissioned a new image of Our Lady. And it was there was quite a bit of division around lockdown, and they wanted to find a way to bring peace and dialogue into a country. So they ran a competition, and by the grace of God, I won the commission. And so we started a full process into looking at what the foundation of our faith was through the eyes of the first Catholic bishop in New Zealand, Bishop Pompelia, and then seeing his vision for the country, and then how we can use his original cause of evangelization, his skyrocket moment, to bring the foundation of the mission through to these times, which is quite a challenge. So yeah, so I had the privilege of spending time with the local Maori people, and did a consultation, and we created and developed a brand new image for our country, Kohata Maria. And yeah, so we worked alongside tribes, the local tribes that had an amazing advisor, Anthony, and he helped me get the elements of Our Lady, which is looking at Our Lady from a New Zealand aspect, which is very different. So when the image was finished, Our Lady went on a full tour of the country. So the bishops reconsecrated, rededicated our country to Te Ara Maria, to Mary's Way. And then after that, the trip, it went on a full pilgrimage around the whole country. So 400 stops in just under 340 days. So every parish, the image was Our Lady went to, and they rededicated the parish, and they rededicated the communities to Our Lady. Then on 2021, in August 15th, the whole country was put under Our Lady, and they elevated the church to national shrine, and so she is now our national image of New Zealand.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's amazing.
So yeah, so Our Lady's got a mysterious way of working, but they didn't tell me all of that when we began the commission. But yeah,
That's really something. So before I let you go, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to say, or anything you'd like to promote? I know we're going to be putting a link to your website in the show notes, so people can look you up. And is there anything you need? Are you looking for donations or funding, or do you have any projects coming up that people might be interested in that they could see at your website?
yeah. So we're just doing a full website revamp at the moment. So yeah, we've got a few projects coming up in the States that you'll be able to be aware of. So they'll be linked in the show on our website. So keep an eye on there. And yeah, we're just in the process of kind of setting up a bit of a mission for the studio and protecting the sacred arts and a revival. So that will be in there as well. So you'll be able to, that section will be coming up on our website shortly. But yeah, like as I said, our mission is international. So if any parishes or communities or homes are looking for something beautiful, we're definitely there to assist. I mean, our mission is international. So even though we're based in New Zealand, I travel a lot with my work. So, we do sacred art for any community. It doesn't matter the size or that. But yeah, our mission to evangelize is a fundamental part of our ministry. And I think being able to have a place, I mean, my long-term goal is to be able to have a beautiful place to support the arts and for New Zealand and for the world. Yeah, so that we'll have some more information on our website about that shortly.
Excellent. Well, gosh, I'm so happy you came today, and we made it through. Like, Satan didn't win today. We got to do our episode. So
My mission.
I know. So I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm so happy that you became a guest, and we will put a link in the show notes to your website. And I just thank you so much for coming today.
It's been an absolute joy, and thank you for your time. It's really amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Thank you. Love you. Bye.